The Dallas Cowboys kind of trip over their own feet here in Week 14 over the not over the but under the Detroit Lions. The Lions managed to put together their game plan pretty well. Dallas seems like they made the mistakes. Michael, you ready to get into this one?
Painfully, yes.
Yeah, this one was unpleasant to watch. It felt like you just needed one stop or something like that. But was that really what this was? Was this just Dallas's defense pumpkined and turned back into early season form? Or like what's the deeper thinking here on this game?
I mean, on paper, it's going to look like yes because it's 44-30, right? So on paper, it's going to be like, well, yeah, they definitely regressed. Early in the season, the thing that really got us was these 40, 50-yard pass plays that were just murdering us. Yes, there were some big plays, not as many of that type. There was a big pass play to Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Jahmyr Gibbs. Absolutely. Those all three hurt for sure. There were some of those, but it was all big plays. It was all big plays, right? They had 100 yards rushing, 40 or about 50 or 55 of that was on two different plays. So it was these gash kind of like, hey, we hurt you kind of plays here and there. That is reminiscent of the first part of our season. I think the bigger story, I think a lot of people are going to say, hey, Dallas beat themselves. We can talk about that in a minute. But I'm going to just talk about I think the story of this game is getting outcoached. I think the game plan, sorry, Schottenheimer, but the game plan that the Lions put together, what seems simple, seems almost straightforward now, but kind of brilliant, which is on offense, they basically just introduced Dan Skipper as a tight end and left him in for the whole game. For those of you who don't know, Dan Skipper is an offensive lineman. He is a massive offensive lineman. And so they just added another offensive lineman and said, hey, we'll have less guys out there. We're going to bet on the athleticism of Jahmyr Gibbs, Jameson Williams, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and just work on their athleticism. That's it. We're just not going to let Jared Goff get sacked. I think that I'm surprised how effective it was, but it was awfully effective.
Yeah.
So I think that was the major thing on their offensive side that made them so effective was if you can get the ball into those three people's hands, they are very, very athletic, and they're able to be a difference changer. Does that make sense and on the other side, the thing that we did not do is I almost felt like we read the scouting report on the Lions and said, well, they've underachieved in terms of pass rush this season. So we're not going to worry about really coming up with some complex package or strategy to manage that. All of our guys have done admirably. We're just going to kind of leave them out there. And that backfired, fell apart, was terrible. I don't know what the right word for it is. With our left tackle out, his backup was put upon. That may be Nate Thomas. Nate Thomas, who has done admirably in the last two games, just looked overwhelmed. And I think that we got hurt on both sides. So I think that, to me, does that make sense? Is that too mean to the coaching staff to look at it that way? Or do you think there's some warranted truth there?
Oh, I think there's absolutely some truth there. The coaches are to blame for a loss, just like they'd be to credit for a success. So for a win. So I think that makes total sense there. I put it more on your defense than your offense.
Sure.
You did put up 30 points and you lost your best player halfway through the third quarter or something like that.
Yeah. Yep.
And he was having one heck of a game. So, and if you go back and watch the game again, it felt like a lot of the pressures came on Dak after that, where it was like, he's just not throwing the ball for some reason. Oh, it's because no one's open because Ceedee Lamb's not out there. And it did feel like that changed some things. I'm not trying to put it all on that injury, and I'm certainly not suggesting that Detroit hurt him to try to make things better for themselves. But it did feel like we're starting to catch up. And then Ceedee went down, and it hobbled your return to the game a bit. So that was just one of the things. But yeah, I do get the game plan. And it's not just the game plan coming into the game. I wondered if at halftime you would make appropriate adjustments, and it didn't feel like you changed the right things, or maybe they didn't change anything, but it just didn't. It didn't. Your adjustments did not work. So okay.
Well, I would say on that, I think our offensive adjustments worked. Before in the first half, we had 9 points.
Yeah.
Second half, we scored 21. So I'm just saying on the offensive side, I think that worked. The defensive side, yeah, we did not change anything of effectual value there for sure. Whatever we tried there didn't work. But yeah, does that make sense? Like I do think that our offensive strategy changed, but I also think one of the things that I think has become glaringly apparent based off these last 3 weeks where, oh, Dallas is playing better, that's great, but we cold start. We do not do first quarters well. We are getting outplayed in the first quarter. I should look up the scores. I should have looked this up already. By how much we're getting outscored in the first quarter. And if it happens once, it's like, hey, maybe that just happens. It happens twice, it's like, okay, that's unfortunate. But by the time that we get to, week 3 or 4 of it happening over and over, there's a problem that needs to get solved. We need to do something better. We were not good in the red zone on offense. So on the offensive side, we were 1 for 3 in the red zone. We cannot be doing that. So
yeah, and I agree with that. Obviously, touchdowns instead of field goal. I mean, at one point, I think it was 17-9 or 20-9 going into the half, and it just seemed like they were really capitalizing, and you weren't. Your field goals were keeping the game from being completely out of hand, but it was still not ideal, obviously. And then after the half, Dak has the unfortunate interception. They score very quickly off of that, and I felt like from then on out, it forced you to be that one-dimensional team that we really don't want to be. You combine that with Ceedee going down, and you've got the odds kind of, pardon me, the odds kind of stacked against you. They, in some ways, performed quite admirably considering that on offense, but still, your defense, 44 points. You're not going to win a lot of games allowing that many. And again, that's why I kind of mentioned at the beginning of the video, that's kind of what the first games look like. I don't have any real issue with your offense. I mean, there are imperfections, but you put up 30 points. So I'm like, you're going to win 9 games out of 10, most teams, if you score 30 or more points. And so it felt like primarily a defensive problem from the outside. I didn't feel like the officiating was egregious. There were a couple of calls I disagreed with here and there, but I didn't think it was like super lopsided or anything.
In terms of numbers, I would agree. And look, as much as we can make it, there was a rather egregious call against Jake Ferguson, where he had cut one way and cut back across, and they called it offensive pass interference. And it was clearly defensive pass interference. Like there was nothing in the world to come up with. They brought on, the expert to talk about it. And he's like, there's nothing here. Like there's nothing to even attempt to call on this. Yes, there was that egregious call. That was not the game in and of itself. That was not the game. If you were to say there was a call that killed us, it was our fault. Was Spanford had a hands to the face, illegal contact to the face call that negated a defensive pass interference call, would have had us on the 4-yard line. That would have been basically a guaranteed touchdown. So we did it to ourselves. Like we had 2 interceptions, 3 fumbles. Sometimes it's not the number of penalties, it's the timing of penalties.
Sure.
And we've hurt ourselves repeatedly on things like that. So
well, we'll see moving forward what they're able to do. But like, are you concerned that this defensive allowing 44 points is a sign of things to come and there's going to be more of this? Or was this probably more of a fluke and you think that partially at least Detroit may have just matched up really well against you? Maybe you played a bad game, but on the other side of this, they're just how they're built countered the way you're built.
Yeah, I mean, there's a big part of this that I do think that, like a lot of teams have struggled. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, they're a challenge to cover. And they definitely were in this game. I think that they did match up well against us in that regard. With that being said, I felt like we just did not have any answer on defense to when things weren't going well, right? Am I concerned? Yes, I'm concerned that every team we play for the rest of the season will follow suit. It's what I would do if the next week is I would put an extra offensive lineman out on the field all the time, because the defensive tackles just can't break through everybody. So I would do it and try to just play. I think the other smart thing is he didn't hold the ball for long. Like he got rid of the ball. They did not play. We're waiting for the long ball. They played. We're going to go for the short medium pass. So yes, I'm concerned about this, both from a staff who's on the field standpoint, but also a coaching standpoint of can we make these types of adjustments on the defensive side of the ball. So
yeah, that makes sense. I will say not every team has, and they're somehow underrated. Not every team has an Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams 2-0. However, the team you play next does. So next week you go up against the Vikings, who have, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, pardon me. But they don't have Jared Goff. They don't have half a Jared Goff right now. So that will be a different matchup to get into next week. So that'll be interesting. Until then, let's go ahead and wrap this one up. So yeah, this was a stinker. It feels like well, we know for a fact your playoff chances went down mathematically or whatever, but ultimately, if you continue to win your games, you'll still have a really solid chance. The NFC is not completely running away. I feel like 6 of the 7 playoff spots are running away, but that 7th one is still where your real possibilities lie. So hopefully the Eagles will continue to kind of flounder for you, maybe even give you a shot there. But time will tell. So until then, thanks everyone for joining us. For the Cowboys fans, sorry for your loss out there. Hopefully you'll get back to the winning ways next week. We'll talk more about that Vikings game in a few days. So until then, any newcomers, I appreciate you joining us. Give us a like and subscribe if you wouldn't mind. We're trying to get to 200. Hope you'll join us again. Let us know what you think in the comments and where we're right, where we're wrong, any of those fun things. And stay warm out there. It's starting to get cold in places. And until next time, I hope you have a fantastic day.